Shalom Havrim, James Trim here, and today I want to talk to you about the ancient Jewish version of Matthew known as the Judaicon. But before we get started, I need to ask everybody to please donate to support these videos. Today, the time of making this video is the 30th, and the rent will be due very soon, and we don't have it. So please consider donating to support these work and these videos. For those that don't know, my wife is disabled. She is chronically ill and suffers chronic pain, and I am her caretaker here. So we definitely need your financial support to continue this work and to make life possible. You're the ones that make these videos possible. Also, please like these videos. Like our video today. Subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell, and so you'll get notifications of new videos. Also, let us know what you think in the comments, comment section, and participate in the discussions down below in the comments section. And all of these things are things that YouTube looks at to decide which videos to recommend to new viewers, and we like getting recommended to new viewers. Also, please share these videos with your friends and email, on social media, on Facebook, in relevant Facebook groups, on Twitter, and other social media accounts that you may participate. Okay. Also, we have handouts that you can follow along with in these frequently in these videos, as is the case today. And there is a link to the handouts in the video discussion, in the video description. It's a PDF file. Also, I asked you to donate. I don't know that I told you how. You can do that by clicking on the donate link in the video description, or by sending donations by PayPal to donations@wnae.org. Great. Okay, let's get started. Looking at our handout titled the Judaicon, it's actually a good handout that you may just want to keep because it's got all the Judaicon readings. So the Judaicon is a term that refers not to an actual version of Hebrew Matthew or a Jewish version of Matthew that we actually have in our hands. It's actually a group of marginal notes that appear on some 36 or more Greek manuscripts of Matthew that date from the 9th to the 13th centuries. I've got a list of some of the manuscripts here in the video in the handout, on the handout. So most people don't actually know that many Greek manuscripts of Matthew have marginal notes offering an alternate reading and saying the Judaicon, which is Greek for basically Jewish version or Jewish book, the Judaicon reads, and giving an alternate Jewish reading or an alternate reading from the ancient Jewish version of Matthew. And it's one of the marginal notes describes the Judaicon as being a standard version of Matthew that was kept on Zion, the Holy Mount in Jerusalem. There was until the 4th century a Nazarene synagogue, commonly and wrongly called the Church of the Apostles, on Mount Zion, which had been built with stones of the temple following its destruction. So apparently this Jewish version, there was a standard Jewish version of Matthew that was kept there, and these marginal notes are references to alternate readings from this Jewish version of Matthew. There are a total of 13 such marginal notes, and we will look over those in this study today. And what's very interesting is many of these 13 marginal notes have parallels in the either in the Deutele or Shem Tov Hebrew versions of Matthew, or the Old Syriac Aramaic version of Matthew. So very closely tied to the Hebrew and Aramaic origin of the New Testament, and we've done videos recently on the Deutele Hebrew version of Matthew, the Shem Tov Hebrew version of Matthew, and the Old Syriac Aramaic version of the four Gospels. So these Judaicon marginal notes fit right in with that material. Also, one of the marginal notes agrees has some additional material that agrees precisely with a quotation that we have preserved in Jerome from the Gospel according to the Hebrews, which was an ancient apocryphal, lost apocryphal gospel that was used by the ancient Nazarenes and Ebionites, and which the church fathers quoted frequently. We have about 50 quotations either in the church fathers or on marginal notes of manuscripts, and in later writings. And we know from that material, and we did a whole video on the Gospel according to the Hebrews, that our Gospel of Matthew is an abridgment of the Gospel according to the Hebrews. So it's no surprise that one of the Judaicon readings would agree with one of Jerome's quotations from the Gospel according to the Hebrews. And some writers have assumed that the Judaicon is the same as the Gospel according to the Hebrews. We don't know that to be true. Obviously, since the Judaicon notes are all marginal notes to Matthew, they're all parallels with very small slight additions sometimes to material that is in our Gospel of Matthew. But since our Gospel of Matthew is an abridgment of the Gospel according to the Hebrews, I do think that authors and writers have been correct in including all the Judaicon readings in compilations of Gospel according to the Hebrews readings. So since the Judaicon is a Jewish version of Matthew, and Matthew is an abridgment of the Gospel according to the Hebrews, they all do happen to be Gospel according to the Hebrews references, but they're actually references to a Jewish version of Matthew. Now, since they're references to a Jewish version of Matthew, I would argue that based on other information we have, that the original Jewish version of Matthew was either Hebrew or Aramaic, most likely Hebrew, and that it is no surprise then, or should come as no surprise, that some of these readings have parallels in our Hebrew and Aramaic versions of Matthew. Okay, let's look at the first reading. It's really simple. It's from Matthew chapter 4, verse 5. And in Matthew 4, verse 5, our traditional text says, "Then the devil took him into the holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple." And this is a very slight difference in the Judaicon. The Judaicon doesn't have into the holy city, but instead in Jerusalem. Okay, this reading agrees with the reading that we find in Luke chapter 4, verse 9, but not in our canonical text of Matthew chapter 4, verse 5, which is significant because this is then reaching to the synoptic source that's behind both Luke and Matthew. And I have made the argument that that is what the Gospel according to the Hebrews is. And it would be no surprise then that the original text of Matthew agreed with Luke here, with actually saying Jerusalem, and that a later hand updated Matthew with the euphemism, the holy city, in place of Jerusalem. Okay, the second reading is from Matthew chapter 5, verse 22, where our traditional text says, "But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment." By the way, if you're following along in the handouts, you'll see that I actually have the actual Greek of the Judaicon marginal notes here in your handouts for each of these readings. So the Judaicon marginal note says the word for without cause is not written in some copies nor in the Judaicon. And in fact, the phrase without cause does not appear in the Western type text type. And we'll do a whole video on the Western type text in the future. One of the qualities there are three types of Greek texts, or three types of texts in general, in fact. The Western text, the Alexandrian text, and the Byzantine type text. And the Western text is known for having a greater number of Semitisms. So it is not a surprise then that the Jewish version would have an agreement with the Western type of text. The Western type of text is really a key to the Hebrew and Aramaic origins. The Old Syriac Aramaic is a Western type of text, as is the Old Latin, which is why it used to be called the Syro-Latin text type. So this reading agrees with Codex D, which is the Greek, for the four Gospels, is the most well-known, well-established Greek example of the Western text type. It agrees with the Old Latin. It agrees with the Latin Vulgate. It agrees with the Old Syriac, as well as the Peshitta here. So the phrase without cause doesn't appear in any of those texts. Let me correct myself. Actually, it appears in all of those type of texts, all of those texts that I just mentioned, and it does also appear in the Byzantine type text. What it doesn't appear in is it does not appear in the Alexandrian types of text, and it doesn't appear in Hebrew math, in the Deutele Hebrew and Münster Hebrew Matthew, nor does it appear in the Shem Tov Hebrew Matthew. So it doesn't appear in the Hebrew versions of Matthew that we have, Deutele, Münster, and Shem Tov. They agree with the Judaicon or Jewish version in omitting the phrase in English, but it's a single word in most of the original language versions or ancient language versions without cause. All right, let's look at the third reading, and it's involves Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 through 23, where our traditional text says, "Not everyone that says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, and in your name have cast out devils, and in your name have done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity." And so the Judaicon has a marginal note. The Judaicon marginal note says the Judaicon has here, "If you are in my bosom and do not the will of my Father which is in heaven, out of my bosom will I cast you out." And this is quite probably the writing that's being referred to by Clement in his in the early second century, in his second letter to the Corinthians, where he says, also, and this is 2 Clement 4:5 or 2:15 in some editions, depending on what edition you're looking at. It says, "Also, let us not fear men, but rather God. Therefore, or wherefore, if we should do such wicked things, the Lord has said, though you should be joined to me, even in my very bosom, and not keep my commandments, I would cast you off, and say to you, Depart from me, I know not who you are, you workers of iniquity." All right, the fourth reading involves Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, where our traditional text says, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be you therefore wise as serpents and as harmless as doves." And the Judaicon has wise more than serpents instead of wise as serpents. So just a minor difference there. Reading number 5 is a marginal note to Matthew 11:12, where our traditional text says, "And from the days of Yochanan the Immerser until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and men of violence take it by force." And the Judaicon has a marginal note that the kingdom of heaven is ravished or plundered. And this agrees with the Deutele Hebrew Matthew, which has the kingdom of heaven is constricted and the forceful plunder it. So that agrees with the Deutele Hebrew version of Matthew. The 6th reading involves our traditional text of Matthew chapter 11, verse 25. "At that time Yeshua answered and said, I confess to you, O Father." The Judaicon says instead, "I give thanks or praise to you." This parallels the Deutele in Münster, which has "I thank you," and Shem Tov, which has "praise you," and the Old Syriac and the Peshitta that have "thank you." Reading number 7 involves our traditional text of Matthew 12:40, which says, "For Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." And most people don't seem to know this, but there is a marginal note to this reading in many of the Greek manuscripts of Matthew, and the marginal note says, the Judaicon, or the Jewish version, has not 3 days and 3 nights here, where it says "in the heart of the earth." So where it's the phrase where it says, it starts out and it says in the Judaicon, "For Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, so shall the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth." And the 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, the phrase 3 days and 3 nights was apparently added. It wasn't in the original Jewish version. This is very important because this is a key proof text that many use to prove a Wednesday crucifixion, and they hang it all on this passage. They don't seem to be aware of the fact that there's a marginal note to this passage in many of the Greek manuscripts that says the original Jewish version didn't say that. So the original Jewish version didn't have that passage, and this is one of the reasons that I have advocated for a Thursday crucifixion, because that fits better with what we read in Luke, where it's clearly what we call during the day Sunday, and they say that today is the 3rd day since these things happened. And if one can count, one can simply count backwards from, we don't have to worry about the inclusive or exclusive counting issues, because that makes it clear. If Sunday during the day was the 3rd day since these things happened, then Saturday during the day was the 2nd day since these things happened, and Friday was the 1st day during the day since these things happened, and that means Thursday during the day was the day these things happened. So Luke's statement that Sunday, or the 1st day of the week during the day, was the 3rd day since these things happened, pinpoints the crucifixion to Thursday during the day. And the only conflict with that is this passage, which didn't, that says that he was 3 days and 3 nights. So that's where the Wednesday crucifixion crowd proves the Wednesday crucifixion using this passage that wasn't actually in the original Jewish version. Okay. Reading number 8, Matthew chapter 15, verse 5. Some people just may not like the fact that reading number 7 says that that passage that's a beloved proof text to them didn't occur in the original Jewish version, but that's the fact. It wasn't in the original Jewish version of Matthew. All right, reading number 8, Matthew chapter 15, verse 5, where our text says, "That which you might have been profited by me is a gift." And it just in the Greek text, it just has a Greek word for gift there. The Judaicon says korban, an offering is what you might have obtained from us. And it has the Hebrew word korban transliterated into the Greek, which, by the way, is the way it appears in the Greek text of Mark chapter 7, verse 11. There, the Hebrew word korban is transliterated into the text in the Greek text of Mark 7:11, and korban is transliterated into the Judaicon reading here, as opposed to the word gift, the Greek word for gift, which is doron. Okay. This also agrees with the Aramaic of the Old Syriac and the Peshitta versions that have the cognate Aramaic word korbana, I think, for carbon. Okay, for korban. All right, the ninth reading relates to Matthew chapter 16, verses 2 through 3, where our traditional text says, "He answered and said to them, when it is evening, you shall say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O you hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times." And the Judaicon says, what is marked with an asterisk is not found in other manuscripts. Also, it is not found in the Judaicon. And what's marked with an asterisk, since if you don't have the handout, is everything after verse 2, "He answered and said to them," and then the phrase, "when it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red," and all of verse 3 do not appear in the original Jewish version of Matthew. This text, the phrase in question, is also absent from the Aramaic of the Old Syriac. A number of Greek codices omit these words as well, including Codex Sinaiticus, Codex B, Codex X, Codex Dalet, and the Farrar manuscript 13, Codex 157, and Codex 579. It's interesting that Farrar 13 is an important witness to the Western type of text, while Aleph, or the Septuagint, and Codex B are primary witnesses to the Alexandrian text type. So there's good evidence here that this phrase didn't appear in the oldest manuscripts, and according to this marginal note, it didn't appear in the original Jewish version, and we know that it also didn't appear in the Old Syriac Aramaic version of Matthew. Okay, reading number 10. We're coming to the last three readings. Reading number 10 relates to Matthew chapter 16, verse 17. This passage, our traditional text says, "And Yeshua answered and said to him, Blessed are you, Shimon bar Yonah," or Simon bar Jonah, Simon the son of Jonah. The Judaicon has son of Yochanan. So the original Jewish version didn't say Yonah, it said Yochanan here. Okay. Moving on to reading 11, which is a marginal note to Matthew chapter 18, verse 22. Where our traditional text says, Yeshua said to him, I say to you until 7 times, I say not to you until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. The Judaicon has immediately after the 7 times 7, quote, "For in the prophets, after they were anointed with the Ruach HaKodesh, there was found in them a word of sin." And this reading agrees with a quotation from the Gospel according to the Hebrews found in Jerome, in the writings of Jerome, in his Against Pelagius, Book 3, Section 2. In the Gospel according to the Hebrews, this is quoting from Jerome, in the Gospel according to the Hebrews, which is written in the Chaldee and Syrian language, but in the Hebrew letters, and is used by the Nazarenes to this day, I mean the gospel according to the apostles, or as it is generally maintained, the gospel according to Matthew, a copy of which is in the library at Caesarea. We find, quote, if your brother sin against you in word and make amends to you, receive him 7 times in a day. Simon, his disciple, said to him, 7 times in a day? The Lord answered and said to him, I say to you until 70 times 7. Even the prophets, after they were anointed with the Ruach HaKodesh, or the Holy Spirit, were guided by a word of, were guilty of a word of sin, word of sin is a Hebraism for a matter of sin, or something of sin. This single agreement has caused some scholars to assume that the Judaicon is identical with the Gospel according to the Hebrews. However, one cannot draw that conclusion from a single common reading. Certainly, if one found some quotations from one of our, if we didn't have the book of Mark and we just found a few quotations of it, and we found one of the quotations agreed with Matthew, we might assume it was Matthew, but it's not. Okay. So there's no reason to jump to the conclusion that the Judaicon is the gospel according to the Hebrews. It is apparently a Jewish version of Matthew, which is, by the way, the book of Matthew is an abridgment of the gospel according to the Hebrews. So all the citations we have, or the references we have to the Judaicon, did appear in the gospel according to the Hebrews, or would have appeared in the gospel according to the Hebrews, but they're not the same book. Okay, or at least we don't have enough reason to say they are the same book. The Judaicon is simply a Jewish version of Matthew, and therefore an important witness, as we can see, to the Hebrew and Aramaic origin of Matthew, with its many parallels to the Hebrew and Aramaic manuscripts of Matthew. All right, reading number 12, which is to Matthew chapter 26, verse 74. Then began, this is where our text says, then began he to curse and swear, I know not the man, and right away the rooster crowed. The Judaicon says he denied and swore and cursed. This parallels the Shem Tov Hebrew version of Matthew, which has he began to deny and to swear at no time that he knew him, he had known him. So the Judaicon reading here seems to be a conflation of the traditional reading and the one that we find in Shem Tov, the Shem Tov Hebrew version of Matthew. And finally, our last reading from the Judaicon is in Matthew chapter 27, verse 65, where our traditional text says, Pilate said to them, you have a guard, go make it sure as you can. The Judaicon has, and he delivered to them armed men that they might set over against the cave and keep it day and night. So these are the 13 readings that are marginal notes to some Greek manuscripts of Matthew that refer to alternate readings found in an original Jewish version of Matthew, which was a standard version of Matthew kept at the synagogue at Mount Zion during the first 4 centuries CE, at the Nazarene synagogue on Mount Zion. Okay, these, as you can tell, these 13 readings have a close relationship to our Hebrew and Aramaic versions of Matthew that have come down to us. And so we have here yet one more witness to the Hebrew and Aramaic origin of Matthew. They're also a witness to readings that we would find in the Gospel according to the Hebrews, as one of them agrees with the Gospel according to the Hebrews precisely, and another one of them agrees with a quotation that Clement makes in one of his epistles, which may well be from the Gospel according to the Hebrews or from this Jewish version of Matthew. They all would have appeared in the Gospel according to the Hebrews, so they're an important witness to us, to the Gospel according to the Hebrews, and to the Hebrew and Aramaic origin of Matthew, and certainly as believers, especially those from a Jewish roots perspective, marginal notes to Greek Matthew that refer to alternate readings in an original Jewish version of Matthew should be of paramount importance to us. So I've hoped you've learned something today, and that this will help you better understand Matthew from a Jewish perspective, and from these marginal notes referring to a ancient Jewish version of Matthew and its alternate readings. I need to ask everybody again to please consider donating to support this work. Our rent is due on the 1st. It's the 30th today, and we don't have it. So if you can possibly donate to support this work, we would definitely appreciate it. And also, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell so that you'll get notified when new videos come out. It's absolutely free to subscribe. And then also let us know what you think of this video in the comment section. Participate in the discussions in the comment sections of our videos, and all these things are things that the YouTube algorithm looks at to decide which videos to recommend to new viewers. And we want to get recommended to new viewers, and you can help with that too by sharing these videos in email with your friends, on social media with your friends, on Facebook, on your Facebook page, in relevant Facebook groups, on Twitter, and other social media as well. Tape them to stray dogs. Get the word out. All right. So with that, remind everybody you can donate by clicking on the donate link in the video description, or sending donations by PayPal to donations@wnae.org. Until next time, everybody, shalom.